There is black mold behind every inch of drywall in that house. It is
Oh my
literally
God.
everywhere, okay? This house is now condemned.
Welcome to Property Lounge Ladies, where real estate meets real life. We're three women from different markets, different backgrounds, and different experiences coming together to talk about all things real estate, the wins, the challenges, and everything in between.
Hi, everybody. Carol here with Property Lounge. Today, we're going to discuss the weather pertaining to all things real estate. Everybody want to introduce yourselves?
Yep. Paula Ponte, Central Florida.
There
Bianca
you are.
Salas, DMV.
Awesome. And DMV, for those that don't know, 'cause it sounds like a motor
Yeah,
vehicle company. I
I
don't
know.
know.
It's the DC metro area. So DC, Maryland, Virginia.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
But, you may have
Not
a
where you get your
referral.
driver's license.
You may have a
Listen,
referral in Alaska, somebody listening, and they don't know what DMV is.
right, right. And so
Awesome.
anybody who is listening, if you have a referral for Florida, Maryland, Virginia, Washington, D.C., Delaware, or Pennsylvania, you can hit us up and we got you.
Yep. Yep.
So as realtors, we deal with weather all the time. The cold, the hot, the rain, the hurricane, the tornado warnings, all of the things. And you would be surprised. It can wreak havoc, right?
All
So
right.
who has the worst weather story?
Oh my God. Okay. So it was the day that we had the inspection.
Of course.
And let me tell you, there was a foot of freaking water in the basement because it was like a torrential rain. And then this lady was in tears because the inspector was supposed to come in the morning and he never came. He never came. He never came. He was supposed to come like up to 2 o'clock. That guy came at 5 o'clock. There was a foot of water in her basement and she was in tears. I got the deal done regardless, but that was like my horrific story when it comes to weather. What about you, Paula?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we know I live in the hurricane state, so we have a lot. But for the first time, I had to actually implement the force majeure. That's how we say it, right, on the contract.
Okay.
I had a buyer client that I was working with, and we were closing. We were, kind of getting ready to do our final walkthrough, like all the things that was happening any day. Closing was scheduled, and the hurricane hit. And but thankfully, their insurance was bound, of course, which is important to think about when hurricanes are approaching, especially here in Florida. You want to make sure that insurance is bound. Otherwise, you won't be getting insurance anytime soon. And so they had that, but this was a new build. So it was sort of like a build on your lot kind of situation. So it wasn't in a community or subdivision. So anyway, with that said, brand new house, hurricane hits, closing is delayed, final walkthrough is delayed. And we do our final walkthrough once we were able to get back out onto the roads. And the roof was messed up. I
Mm.
mean, leaks all over, shingles that were pulled apart. It was the worst situation that I had ever seen. So we ended up having to delay closing for 30 days so that the builder can go back out there and they didn't redo the whole roof, but they basically fixed the roof to make it where, it was hopefully never going to happen again, which I don't think it has because we've had some pretty bad hurricanes since then. So yeah, that was the worst. That was the longest. And I had never, that was my first encounter with having to go back. Okay. Like how does this all work legally?
Right.
So yeah,
Wow.
we had to delay 30 days, delayed closing.
That's
30
So
kind of
days.
crazy.
yeah.
So yeah, because I had a listing, we put it up and then it snowed and nobody could get in because they hadn't plowed the road properly. Right. So we lose almost 2 weeks on market because we had all that snow come and hit us out of nowhere. And the ice was so thick and it was just in that pocket of space that they didn't plow. Right. So you're like, are you kidding me? And what am I going to do? Go down there and shovel out the sidewalk on the house? You still
Yeah.
can't drive in there. There's no getting in there. So weather can really, play its little devil in your world. You got to be
Who
careful.
takes care of it up north? I mean, I'm from up north, so I know about this stuff, but I haven't been in real estate up north. But when it comes to, let's say you have a vacant listing,
Yeah.
sellers are out of state or whatever, and it snows and you've got ice and you got all the things, who puts the salt or the sand or whatever down? Who takes care of that? Does the seller kind of hire somebody to do that? Do you monitor that? Like, how does that work for you in real estate?
Generally, for me anyway, I'm managing the hiring of somebody to go and do that, right?
Hmm.
I don't have I can't go take care of somebody's sidewalk. That's just not in my
Right.
time frame. It's not I can't get that on my
Yeah.
schedule. But I can manage getting somebody out there to take care of it, and generally the seller will pay for it, Venmo,
Hmm.
Cash App. I mean, it's so easy to
Yep.
send money these days. That part's the easy part. It's just what do you do when you've got a listing sitting there, and you got crickets because there's ISO and everything.
Yeah.
It's hard to have those conversations sometimes because you gotta tell your seller, right? What are you doing? You're doing those weekly update calls and emails, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, well, there's really not much to talk about because as you know, we still have snow everywhere."
Yeah.
And that's just, it's just one of those things that you have to be prepared for having to deal with when you're gonna work in real estate. Like, I'm sure for you, it's the hurricanes.
Absolutely, yeah. One of the most eye-opening things that it's not really that eye-opening, I guess, but it was something I just didn't think about as a brand new agent, was my signs. Like, so I had a lot of listings going on and we had, our first hurricane when it was my first like full-time year in real estate. And I had to go and collect all of my signs. I thankfully saw someone's post that said, "Hey, real estate agents, don't for, other agents I was friends with, don't forget to get your signs, but you got to
Right.
go and take all your signs down. Otherwise, the wind's going to blow them away. So that can be a little bit of a pain, but that's something like if you're a new agent, don't forget to take down your real estate signage.
Well, I will say this too, right? So I love these newer signs, right? Aren't they ever so pretty with these posts and they look, they have
Hmm.
like the single post and those are the worst in bad weather. Those are the absolute
Hmm.
worst in bad. They always fall over. They always fall over. Do you know this is literally your first impression to some people? And do you want it to be your sign on the ground? When I saw that, I was in real estate maybe 4 months. I immediately got rid of that. Immediately went back to the metal frames that you just put in the ground because it means your sign is not on the ground. And
Hmm.
what a poor impression. And I don't know why more realtors aren't talking about that, right? Because new agents come in and everybody's trying to sell you everything. Somebody has to tell you how to weed through some of those weeds. And that would definitely be, like, one of those things I would tell a newer agent, stick to the older sign design. Yes, it might look a little outdated as opposed to some of the others, but at least your sign will never be on the ground, right? And how many times have you found your sign on the ground in bad weather, right? It's not gonna
Right.
happen on sunny days, but if you have, like, a really bad rainstorm and it's really windy, now your sign's on the ground. So do you wanna spend your day running around picking your signs up, or do you wanna spend your day out on new listing appointments,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Absolutely.
happened to me for sure.
You gotta be smart about that stuff. I get I don't have somebody in my area that does sign maintenance.
Hmm.
So, I'm the one driving that sign and picking that sign up.
Hmm.
And I don't have time to run around and pick them up off the ground,
Yeah,
and I literally had a seller call me with that. That was the first sign. It had fallen over, I went over, I picked it back up, I got everything in the ground, blah, 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 blah. 2 days later, the seller was on my phone like, "Yo, do you know your sign's on the ground?"
yeah.
No, I didn't. I went and took that was the last day that sign was in front. I went and got one of the old signs, I put it up, I got rid of this, you know what I mean? Now all of my signs are the metal frames. I'll never have a seller call me and tell me my sign's on the ground again. Are you kidding me? Like, how
Well,
embarrassing.
but besides the sign issue, I think that a lot of sellers don't understand that the actual the worst thing that could happen is really it's all water related, right? Any flooding, any pooling, that's really gonna prevent I mean, that's really gonna cause the most damage. It's not gonna be the wind, even though, you can have, e terrible damage from the
Yeah,
wind or,
yeah, yeah.
trees blowing over. It's really the water that gets in because you're gonna have all kinds of other related issues if there's water. You're gonna get
Right.
mold, you're
Absolutely.
gonna get rotting, you're gonna get all kinds of other issues, and that's the most costly. So even, for example, let me give you an example, like a $200 gutter cleaning, like, could really prevent, your basement from flooding, and
Right.
that could cost you $20,000 to fix that.
Hmm. Yep.
Anything that you can do that's preventative, it's money well spent.
Yeah. And speaking of, one of the things like here in Florida that's important is the trimming of the trees because if like a lot of times those trees are going to come down because the wind doesn't have a way to pass through them. But if your trees are trimmed properly, then the wind can easily pass through. And then also something else that had come to mind is prices for things. So during a hurricane season, cutting those trees is going to cost you a little bit more money, especially if there's a hurricane that's in the mix and you're getting ready to do it now. So it's better to actually do those things, like maybe do it around Christmas time or do it, in October when, after the hurricane
Off
season has
season.
passed. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Because if you're waiting until like, okay, Hurricane Irma is, a named storm, and then now you want to hire a tree company to come trim your trees, well, you're going to be paying out of your ass, to have those trees trimmed. And then not just that, but like insurance premiums. If you're buying a house and now let's just say you're working with buyers and maybe they're on a close budget, maybe the lender is like factoring in, insurance costs, this, that. Well, now if you have buyers, you go under contract, you're in your inspection period, you haven't had insurance bound yet, hurricane named storm hits. Well, then now all of a sudden those insurance premiums have just skyrocketed, and what they were able to potentially qualify for, they may not. So during hurricane season, you want to make sure that you're having conversations with the lender and that they have factored that in. Most good lenders will, but it's just something to think about too that I've had to deal with.
And here's the other thing. You can also use weather to your advantage in real estate. And so this is something that because don't let me find out it's going to rain for a couple of days and I'm working with a buyer. Because guess when we're going to look at houses? In that rain. Because you will find out so much more about a house if it's pouring outside, right? And so I tell all my buyers the same thing. I'm like, yeah, the weather's going to be bad. We definitely need to go look at houses. And they're always shocked when I say that. I'm like, oh, absolutely not. Put your rain gear on. Chop,
Yeah.
chop. You're trying to buy a house.
100% true. That
Yeah.
is so true.
Girl, you're going to see if there's any roof leaks. You're going to see if there's any water intrusion in the basement. You're going to see if there's
Yep.
any bad windows, if there's any water coming through the front door or underneath or the back door. Like there's all of the things. You can look at the steps under the Belco door and see if the rain's coming in. Like there is no better time to look at a house than when it's pouring rain outside.
Absolutely. I had actually buyers, we did that. They were looking at land and they brought their rain boots. They knew, that it was going to be, muddy or whatever. What they didn't know, because we were in a 500-year flood zone. And so they were not anticipating necessarily any kind of major flooding. And this was just a really bad rain that we had. Like it was like a couple of days of like a lot of water. And it was flooded like so bad. And so, yeah, so it
But
was, and
that's
that was
not
the
uncommon in Florida, so that's
no.
really good that they saw
Yeah.
that.
Yep. So that was one of the piece of advice I gave them. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Go see it like
Yeah.
today.
Go out there
Yeah.
today. I tell my,
Well, going
Yep.
going back to what you were saying about trees,
Uh-huh.
not only is it a good idea to cut it back just for, the wind purposes and
right.
hurricanes or other inclement weather, but I always remember this. Somebody, when we were buying our first house, we were told by the inspector, he's like, any trees that hang over the roof line, he's like, you want to get rid of those because not only can it fall on your house easily, if a limb falls, not even the whole tree, but
Mhm.
you're going to have insects, you're gonna have rodents, you're gonna have you're
Absolutely.
gonna have leaves on it. They go into your gutters and then cause other problems, and then the leaves, they absorb the water and they prevent, like, even underneath the leaf,
Right.
the water stays there so that
Mhm.
it ages your roof more quickly. There's all kinds of issues. So
Absolutely.
anytime I see a tree over, a roof line, I'm just like, that's gotta go."
Cut it.
Mhm.
Cut it. It's got to
Yeah,
go.
absolutely. Yep.
Snow can do, and this might not be necessarily something, Paula, you don't probably deal with the snow damage on roofs, but definitely on our side, that can be a thing.
Mhm.
So if you don't have to have it up during a snowstorm, try not to. But if you have to, just be mindful if there's a lot of weight on the roof, maybe push a little bit off, right? Because don't let the roof get damaged and you're trying to sell the house because you're going to have to pay for a new roof. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Careful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And something, just this is not just for sellers to think about, but also just homeowners in general. Florida, we have a lot of septics out here. And then when we have a lot of water that comes through in rain, like an excessive amount, that actually can cause septics to like back up, flooding, and like all kinds of really nasty stuff to go on. So nasty, smelly stuff. So you want to make sure that you're having your septic tanks cleaned out, but also particularly during a hurricane season, like, making sure that you're you should always be getting that septic inspected. We always do, but that's just something you want to be mindful of. We go out there, we're walking out in the yard, stepping over that muddy area, that wet area intentionally because you want
Right.
to kind of get a feel literally for what's going on.
For what's
Remind
going
me
on.
what the rule of thumb is for septic tank inspections and then pump outs?
What do you mean the
Every
real
3
rule
years.
for that?
Yeah,
I thought it was every year.
every
No,
year.
no.
No? Not every
Well,
year?
here you should no, if you should not have to have your septic done every year. It should be done every 3 years.
3 years,
And
right? I agree.
I actually had a guy tell me that, because I was like, "Well, if you get it done every year, is that better maintenance?" You ask all the questions, right? And he was like, "No, and actually you don't wanna get it done every year because then the DENREC in Delaware, it's DENREC, but wherever you are, the code people, if they see you getting it pumped every year, they're gonna think you got more people living there than you should, and it could raise problems." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Y'all
Yeah.
ain't got nothing better to do than worry about how many people have living in their homes."
Yeah.
But,
You know,
whatever.
something else too, I know we talked about insurance, but flood insurance in Florida, that's another huge one. And a lot of property people don't get flood insurance, but there's also that fine print that you have to read when it comes to your flood insurance and really understanding what it covers because flood insurance, just because you have flood insurance, doesn't actually mean it covers everything that's flooded. So I've had some, situations where people were sadly, very disappointed. So, and obviously during hurricane season, that's also going to be quite costly. But yeah, if
Right,
you're in flood zone X here in Florida, no flood insurance necessary. But if you are in zone X and you decide to get flood insurance and it's, obviously not, there's no hurricanes in town, it might be worth your while to do so because it's not going to be as expensive. And we had a situation actually the house that I live in, before I came here, we're not in a flood zone here. There's no flood
okay,
zone. During the last hurricane, the water came through this house up to like midway between your ankles and your knees into the kitchen. And it was completely flooded just because of the way the slope is for the backyard.
right,
Just it's kind of sloped down a little bit, which is something else I always caution my buyers on, paying attention to especially here in Florida. But yeah, so, if you had flood insurance on a property like this, where you would think in normal circumstances, you're not going to have to deal with that damage.
right.
Lo and behold, people do. You inclement weather's
Unbelievable.
changing so drastically over the years, and you really don't know you think you're protected, but you may not be. So you might want to be cautious.
You bring up a good point because standard policies usually don't cover flooding.
Hmm.
You really wanna make sure you understand not only that, if you're covered, and then also, your deductibles for different things because, like, the flooding, if you have that, is gonna have a different deductible
Hmm.
than, a wind deductible. And if it's like a hurricane or force majeure, like you say, and there's gonna be some exclusion. So you have to read your policy and you should like be reading it, every year at minimum. It's kind of eyeballing it, make sure that you understand it and be prepared for the next year and make any changes. And I had interviewed on my old YouTube channel, I had interviewed one of my neighbors when I was living in Miami because he was an attorney who represented, insurance claim people who were doing an insurance claim, and he recommended that yearly, especially if you know a hurricane is coming, just quickly take a video, go through your house, take a video,
Hmm.
document the condition of your house so you are in a better position to
Absolutely.
fight the insurance company and to prove that any damage was caused by the insurance and not already there.
Absolutely. And the same thing, actually, if you are a seller, a home seller, or you're representing a buyer and you're showing them a property, take extra photos of the interior and the inside of like when you were there. Especially if you're in hurricane season. I mean, it's September is like August, September, October here is like pretty big. Take lots of photos because you want to make sure that the house that you're buying, even if a small hurricane comes through, that there's nothing, especially like if it hits after your inspection period and, obviously you have your final walkthrough to do, but it just doesn't hurt to have that extra time stamp, right?
Right, right,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
I think another thing people don't realize is that, it's replacement value versus market value, right? Like, because those two things could be very different. So you want to make sure that you know what it's going to cost to replace whatever it is that you have rather than, just the market value.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Yeah. You don't get, what is it, 50% on, like, if a new kitchen, right? Uh,
Save your receipts.
yeah, save
Is
your
what I'm
receipts.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
what other weather tips do we have? So, if you're going to be working with buyer clients, please make sure you have an extra umbrella in your car.
mhm,
You know what I'm saying? If you're going to work with seller clients and it's wintertime, please make sure you advise your seller to have a shovel and salt handy in case it's going to snow, because you want to make sure that the sidewalk is cleared off if buyers are going to come and view the home, right? Because I have definitely had showings in snow. And as a listing agent, I can tell you when somebody wants to go see your house and there's snow on the ground, this is a serious buyer. This is not, the neighbor down the street kicking tires because he wants to see what your
mhm,
house looks like. That guy's got problems right now. He's trying to take care of his snow. He's got the only people who are, 98% of the time trying to view a home in that type of weather is a serious buyer. Please make sure your seller has the sidewalk taken care of. You know,
absolutely.
what's going to kill a deal faster than the buyer falling on the sidewalk? You know what I'm
Yep,
saying? Think
yep,
about it.
yep.
Like, I'm
It's
I
not,
gonna
mean,
kill your buyer, actually.
well,
and I would say too, like, make sure that your buyers, have flexibility with their closing date, in case, like, especially if I mean, even if you're up north, right? You could have a closing on December 15th and then a major hurricane, I'm sorry, a major snowstorm comes through
right.
and you've got, 2 feet of snow and you're not going to be closing on December 15th. But if they have situations where they're coming from Florida, let's say, and they don't have to worry about snow and they're moving to they're done here. They're packed, they're ready to go. Like they need to be mindful that there could be delays because of the time frame of which that you're buying a house. Like stuff shit happens, right?
Well, here's you know what? I'm gonna yes, you wanna make sure everybody's a little flexible, but at the same time, don't be just throwing blank dates on there. These are not a suggestion.
Mhm.
If your
Of course
agent's like,
not.
"Oh, what
Yeah.
day can you close?" You know what I mean? And you tell them, "Oh, I can close on this day." Yeah, that's no problem.
Yeah.
Don't call me next week and be like, "Oh, well, I'm on vacation the week before that. Why can't we move it up?"
Yeah. No,
Well,
no, no.
we
I
had a
mean
whole
I mean if the
conversation.
law office is closed because
Right.
there's 2 feet of snow on the ground,
Right, right,
then
right. Be a little
that
flexible. Right,
well, yeah, yeah, no, not because you're going on vacation.
right.
No, definitely not.
It's
Yeah.
wild sometimes, some of the things you get.
Yeah, no, that's true. No, for sure. Yeah, so, there's none of us are from California, but I know like in California they've got like earthquakes and fires and all kinds of well, Bianca, you used to live in California, right?
I was born and raised in California. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So how would you say that the weather out there kind of impacts buyers and sellers and homeowners and all the things? Do they have earthquake insurance? Like, is that a thing?
yes. Yeah,
They
so
do. Oh,
earthquake insurance is a thing, and then so is fire insurance. There's a lot of fire zones. It's very dry, and there's a lot like large areas of California, Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico. All those areas are very arid. Texas even they're arid and they're very fires. It's like a fire hazard, right? And all of the insurance, whether it be fire or hurricane, have just skyrocketed in the last few years because we have had such crazy weather and had such extreme weather. So it's extra dry. And so um, the fires have been much larger in the last few years than they have in the past. And then also in Florida and other Gulf, the Gulf region and the East Coast have seen a lot more hurricanes and storm surge than
mhm.
in the past. So it's a thing that I hear across the board as far as insurance rates going up. I have family in New Orleans, and their insurance rates have gone up tremendously. So that's another thing to think about when you're thinking about buying a home is really calculate what the insurance market is doing in that state. For example, my cousin had in New Orleans had to change insurance companies 4 times in a year because the insurance companies just got out of the state. And they sent him a letter and they're like, I'm sorry, we're no longer offering insurance in the state, you need to find somebody else.
Mm.
And it was very frustrating for him. So, be prepared, be prepared.
Yeah. In
There's a lot of
Florida,
people dealing with that. I was gonna say Florida, I think
yeah.
aren't they giving you guys a hard way to go over roofs?
Yes. Yeah. So in Florida, if your roof is not like in the last 10 years of age, they're just not even willing to insure the property. So when we go out and look at properties, we have to make sure that the roof is the first thing that everyone asks and wants to know. If you're representing a seller, you want to advise them, listen, I actually had a customer that had it was not a metal roof. It was what's the black, starts with a T. I'm drawing
Terracotta?
blank. What's
I'm
that?
like, "Teflon?"
Terracotta? Like the clay.
Oh, the
No, no, no,
terracotta.
Okay.
no. It's like a kind of like a rubber roof.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, no, not shingles. It's a flat roof, but it's rubber. It's a special material. It starts with a T. I'll think of it later. But anyway, so that roof, it was they last like years. So certain roofs like that, the 10-year rule doesn't apply because that
Okay.
roof can go like 60 years, no problem. But that roof was about 60, 70 years old, and it was time that it needed to be replaced. So I let my seller know. I'm like, listen,
Yep.
I was like, this is something that you're going to have to just kind of consider when it comes to your seller net. And sure enough, we were under contract and that came up and she was prepared because I told her. And so she was willing to do it. But had she not known and had I not advised her, it would have been a big blow to the gut
Yep.
because of
Expectations are
that.
huge. Good
Yeah.
job. Good
Yeah.
job.
So I think also in Florida, another thing that we have to deal with is the fact that the insurance premiums being so high, that's why our market is a little bit slower than for you guys, because our insurance is just so outrageous right now because of all the hurricanes that we've had.
Right.
It'll level out soon,
Yeah, it will.
but
It
yeah.
always does. It'll find a way. But I think you made a good point earlier. Just because you're not in a flood zone doesn't mean you shouldn't, if possible, purchase the flood insurance, right? Our property, the last house that we're in a place now where I haven't even had to look into it, but where I lived prior to this was not technically in a flood zone. But for anybody looking to buy a house in the state of Delaware, please remember you are below the table line. The entire state is below the table line. You know what I mean? You're going to have a wetness in your basement. There's going to be things that you're going to deal with. It's just the nature of the beast when you live in this state,
Yeah.
which is fine if you know what you're dealing with, right? But so for some people, they're like, oh, is this in a flood zone? No, but you can still purchase flood insurance. Just because it's not in a flood zone doesn't mean you can't have that coverage
Mhm.
because it doesn't mean that you won't get hit. There was an entire street in Delaware that got flooded out in 2022, I think it was, and they are just really got everything back together from that, and they redid our zones, because this
Mm.
now they had not had a flood in that particular area in, like, 80 years, but guess what? Every single one of them sellers sat down there with confidence, not having that flood insurance, and
Yeah.
it really cost some people some money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was living in Miami, we were in one of the highest points of Miami, which was like 14 feet above sea level, which is
Right,
nothing, right?
right.
And I think at that time we opted for flood insurance and it was only like 4 or $500 a year.
That's it, it was like
It
500
you
bucks
know,
a
we did
year.
it because what people were talking about, like Hurricane Andrew, like way long ago,
Right.
they were like, "Oh, it flooded down to, like, the end of the street," and I was like, "Oh, hell no, well, that could happen, and who says that's not gonna happen next year," you know?
Exactly,
So it was
exactly.
it was a peace of mind for me,
Right.
and again, if you're not in a flood zone, it's probably gonna be really inexpensive for you to just have that extra
Exactly,
peace of mind, and you
exactly.
don't know like you said, in 80 years, everybody forgot about it, everybody who was in the last flood ain't living anymore, and then
Mhm.
all of a sudden, what happens?
Mm.
No.
Yeah.
The thing is like, I mean, you do reach a point in life, you know what I mean, where it's like, "Okay, I'd rather just have insurance on it," but seriously, think about it. This is the biggest asset in your life, right? This is your retirement plan, whatever it is. It's like 50 bucks a month. You shouldn't sleep at night over
Mhm.
$50 a month.
Exactly.
What are we talking here?
Over a
$1.87 a day?
$400,000, $500,000 investment.
Girl, take
Yeah.
my money, okay?
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
I need to be able to sleep at night.
Mhm.
So, it's like one of those things, it's like better safe than sorry. Because let me tell you what, I've never had anybody, and I swear to God, I've been in retail my entire life, literally my entire life. I have never one time had a customer come back to me in any of the 3 industries that I have been in and complain that they had purchased a protection that they didn't need. But the number of calls that I got for people who didn't purchase a protection that they needed, okay? Never in
Uh-huh.
the history of the world has anybody ever complained to me about not needing it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
is it annoying that you gotta spend money on something you might not need? Of course it is. Everybody feels that annoyment. Look, we're nobody's special. We're all annoyed, okay? But girl, I gotta sleep at night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I
You
gotta
know,
sleep at night.
something else that came to mind is, you may not have flooding, but you may have small leaks or a little bit of moisture that comes in or gets trapped. And then you have mold that later on somebody might have to deal with. So, really super important to have that thorough home inspection because you don't want to deal with mold remediation because that can cost you thousands of dollars.
There is a woman on TikTok that I am following right now who bought a house, who is suing the flipper, okay? She bought a house, apparently it had been vacant for 10 years or more, and the listing photos, you can see mold in the listing photos,
What?
okay? Now, because the pictures that she found were before the flip, right? So they put this property on for sale before the flippers bought it, and they took just pictures, random pictures, and you can see mold in these pictures. Well, these guys come in and they flip the property and they do a lot of great work. Come to find out, her and her entire family start having different ailments after they move in. Respiratory problems, respiratory this, just not feeling good, faces all broken, all the
No.
things. And so she's like, I just feel like something's going on. And it was like one of those days where it was like she just caught a whiff of something in the one room. And she's like, I think there's mold in that wall. They open up this wall, and man, mold is an understatement. She's got pictures. She's showing the pictures. They bring in specialists, and these people, when it's all said and done, look this woman in her face and tell her they have to tear down this entire house.
Oh
You are
my God.
kidding me.
Girl, there is because now they've tested this one area, right? And it's a $20,000 fix, just this one area in the room. And the mother says, you know, I feel like we should have this tested a little further because I
Uh-huh.
want to make sure we get whatever it is fixed fully the first time. And that's when she brings them back in and has them test the entire house. There is black mold behind every inch of drywall in that house. It is literally everywhere. Okay.
Wow.
There, like, basically, this house is now condemned, and so she starts fishing around on the internet, and she finds the pictures from when the flippers bought it, and you can see mold in the pictures.
So
So
they didn't remediate.
they didn't remediate that mold.
They didn't disclose.
They didn't disclose that mold. They didn't remediate that mold. They fixed everything up. They put fresh drywall up, but without
Mhm.
remediating the mold on the beams and everything like that, the mold is just back there growing and
Yep.
living and growing and living. Now it has overtaken this, and her entire family are sick. This woman's face was severely broken out. And
Wow.
she said, I've never had acne in my entire life. Now here the minute we moved into this house, my face started breaking out."
Wow.
That's
She's like, "We went
Yeah.
on vacation, my face cleared up."
wow.
What?
Yeah.
In Florida, I would walk into a lot of people's homes and I could smell mold
Mhm.
a mile away. And there are how like so many people's houses smell musty and they didn't even smell it anymore because that was like,
Yeah, they get used to it.
Yep.
yeah, but there, because it's so humid and
Yeah.
everybody has the AC running all the time, which is a good thing, it
Uh-huh.
removes humidity, but the AC condensates, like, the condensation of the AC gets in the
Mhm.
wall, and so that's where like, a lot of times that's where it was coming from, so, like, in Florida, especially, the AC, maintenance is very important because
Uh-huh.
there's this, what is it? Like, it drips. What is it?
Right.
The condensation?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it has a pipe that's drips.
Mhm.
I think
But
outside, right? Outside,
outside
like, it drips
by
outside.
the unit, yep,
It's
Yeah, but
supposed
a
to
outside
lot
the
drip
of
unit.
times
outside. Yeah.
Mhm.
that gets gunky and it
Yeah,
backs up.
and then your ducts too.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
your
yes,
ducts can
yes,
end up
yes.
having
I
mold and
remember
all that stuff.
so many people
Mhm.
and, their house just stunk, like
Yeah, yeah,
Mold has a very distinct scent. And once
yeah,
you know that that's what it is, I can walk into a listing appointment now and I'm like, okay, we're going to have to talk about mold
yep, yep.
because you can
So
smell it.
yeah.
I had a listing that was a investment property from my seller. It was a duplex in Tampa, and I went to go see it, and they warned me that it was awful situation. I had to, like, hold my breath to go in there, literally, legit. I put a mask on and held my breath
Mm,
to take photos. It was so unhealthy, unsafe, it was terrible. They ended up having a lawsuit because it was ran by a property management company. So the seller lived in New York City, the owner, excuse me, and seller lived in New York City, and he had it run by this absolutely trash property management company in Tampa. They squatters ended up in there. I mean, it was just god awful situation. Ended up they paused the listing, then they called me again to get it sold. We were debating whether to remodel, do whatever. We got it sold. A year later, they called me asking me to, give them some information because they had a lawsuit going on with that property management company because, I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars they lost on that listing.
wow.
Crazy.
We sold it for like 280 and they should have sold for like 600,000. It was in Tampa. Yeah, it was trashed.
Wow.
When I tell you how bad it was the most disgusting. Yeah, it was really mold, green walls.
I have another one about mold. I had a friend in Miami, and I think her toilet had flooded the
Mhm.
bathroom or something. And then they had pulled up some of the flooring to kind of assess the damage, and they're going to have to replace everything. And they were just waiting
Mhm.
for um, the insurance to give them quotes or something like that. And in the meantime, you could tell, the flooring was all just damp. And then, like, she had, like, mushrooms growing in there. So
My
funny. It's like, "Hey,
gosh.
there's mushrooms," and she was like, "Oh my god." Yeah, I had never seen that before. She's like, "Oh my god, we have to get," but, it was in a back room, so you could just close it off, and
Yeah.
it wasn't it wasn't because, there was mold in the wall or whatever. It was just,
Yeah.
like, fresh leak that
Yeah. Oh
I mean, and
gosh.
here's the thing, right? Let's not freak people out. Like, if you're a new realtor, mold, it only sounds scary. It's not really that scary. It can be remediated. Every state, I'm sure, has regulations. There's a certain, like, I think Delaware is 10 by 10. If you have a 10 by 10 space, the seller can remediate it. There's stuff you can buy at Lowe's that works phenomenal if you just have a small area that you want to treat. You know what I mean? Like, it's the biggest thing I think with mold is that most people don't know what it actually looks like.
And not all molds you could visually see. That's
Right.
something else to keep in mind.
You know, I think, like, in our minds, because if we think if something's bad, we're expecting to see a monster, and we're not expecting to see just little white discolorations on the wall, right?
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And so there's just so that would be like just take some time to look at some Google videos and some Google, images and just kind of see what mold looks like,
Yeah.
and don't become a moldologist because you're a realtor, stay in your lane.
Will
Mhm.
say if I know that a house has mold in it, I won't go in there because I'm not gonna risk my health and, get some kind of respiratory illness just
Yeah.
to
No.
show somebody's
For sure.
house.
It's
For
Sorry.
sure.
nasty,
That's
nasty.
where I draw the line. Yeah,
Yeah. And at the same time, like I've gone into homes and I'm like, it's, it definitely is a little musty in this basement. Have you had
Mhm.
water intrusions? You know what I mean? And they're like, and you just start talking to them and you're like, okay, well, how did you manage that? Right. And you start having those conversations because guess what? If you have a buyer come in and you've got a mold problem, a remediation is not going to be cheap.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can get a mold inspection. I mean, that is something I've actually had, buyers do that. Yeah, you can 100%. It's a little bit, I mean, it's probably $300, but better than $3,000, right?
if there's any indication whatsoever, a smell, a spot, old photos,
Yep.
just a feeling that there might be mold
Right.
or a real humid area, like maybe if you're in Florida or another humid area, you might just want to invest that money. It's money well spent.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, hey, ladies, we've had a great time and we hope everybody has enjoyed our perspective on how weather can hurt you or help you in real estate. We thank you for listening and we are going to come back next week. We've got new topics and new ideas to share with you. Thanks for
Awesome.
listening.